There's a moment in almost every early architecture career where you start to wonder if you're behind. You don't say it out loud, but you think it. You see someone 5 years ahead of you running meetings without notes. You watch a project architect flip through a drawing set and instantly spot what's missing. You hear a principal answer a client question without hesitation, and you assume something clicked for them. Like there was just this week or a month or a promotion, some moment where practice finally made sense. But the truth is, there wasn't a moment. No one wakes up suddenly competent in practice. No one levels up overnight. Most of the professional growth in architecture is so gradual, you can't even feel it happening. And that's exactly why it's so easy to think that you're stalled. School trains you to expect milestones. You have studio juries, critiques, grades. These are clear markers of advancement. But practice doesn't work like that. There are no juries for judgment, only clients. No report card for clarity. No applause for clean coordination. There's just repetition, exposure, and a slow shift in how you see things. If you feel like nothing dramatic has happened in your development recently, that may not be a warning sign. It may be proof that you're in the part that actually builds you. Because practice compounds. Not loudly, not dramatically, not all at once. It compounds slowly. You're listening to The Practice of Practice, a podcast for architects, designers, and emerging professionals navigating the gap between school and real work. We focus on the realities most people only learn through experience: workflow, judgment, responsibility, and time. It's not theory, it's practice. If you zoom out over this season, none of the episodes were about tactics. They weren't software tricks, they weren't detailing shortcuts, and they weren't productivity hacks. They were perception shifts. We talked a little bit about ownership, not as a title, but more as weight. If something feels heavy, it's probably ownership. That wasn't about doing more work. It was about recognizing responsibility before someone hands it to you. We talked about being busy versus progress. Movement feels productive, but progress requires direction. That wasn't about slowing down. It was about aiming at what you're going for. We talked about communication. You're not bad at communicating. You're underestimating how precise professional clarity has to be. That shift wasn't about confidence. It was about calibrating. We talked about mistakes, not as failure, but more so as exposure. Mistakes aren't a verdict. They're just pattern data. We talked about rework. Red lines are more of a conversation, not a report card. And that wasn't about perfection. It was about alignment. Every single one of those ideas had something in common. They were small and disappointingly small. No fireworks, no dramatic transformation, just adjustments in how you interpret what's happening around you. And what most people miss is that those micro adjustments compound. Ownership compounds, clarity compounds, judgment compounds, trust compounds. None of them feel dramatic in isolation, but layer them over years, that'll change the slope of your career. If you were waiting for the season to build towards some big secret, well, there is no big secret. There is a slope, and it's built from repetition. Compounding, it's not really exciting at first. It's more invisible. If you invest $10 and earn a few cents, you don't feel wealthy. But if you repeat that process long enough, the curve bends. Practice works the same way. The first time you review a submittal, you're just trying not to miss something obvious. The 50th time, you start recognizing patterns. The 100th time, you don't just review what's there. You notice what's missing. That shift doesn't happen in a workshop or a lunch and learn. It happens through exposure. You don't attend a seminar and suddenly understand how to read a contractor's tone in an email. You learn it by reading hundreds of them. You don't wake up knowing how to anticipate RFIs either. You start predicting them because you've seen where drawings usually fall apart. I have that conversation constantly with my younger staff. You don't consciously decide to lay out sheets more efficiently. One day you just realize that you're not thinking about it anymore. That's compounding. And here's where I'm going to push you a little bit. If you feel stagnant, ask yourself how much exposure you're actually getting. Are you repeating meaningful reps, or are you just repeating comfort? There's a difference. Repetition without stretch flattens the curve. Repetition with exposure builds judgment. You don't need intensity. You need volume. Volume of coordination, volume of decisions, volume of consequences for sure. You can't compress that timeline. You can only show up for it. And you won't notice the curve bending while it's happening. You'll notice when someone newer than you asks a question that feels like it's obvious to you. You'll notice it when you spot a coordination issue 10 seconds in, when it used to take you an hour. You'll notice it when a client starts asking for your opinion instead of just your output. Those aren't moments of arrival. They're evidence of accumulation. You're not who you were 18 months ago, even if you feel the same. And you will be even more advanced in 18 months from now. That's the part that messes with people. Growth in practice rarely feels like actual growth. It feels like repetition. Until one day it doesn't. Let's nick something clearly. There is no arrival point. There's no point where you stand up and think, I've mastered practice. If you've ever felt that way, it usually means you stop stretching. Mastery is episodic. Trajectory is structural. You might master a project type. You might be good at schools or hospitals. You might master a detail. You might be the subject matter expert of a roof system. Or you might master running a specific kind of meeting. But practice keeps moving. Codes change. Clients change. Delivery methods change. And your responsibility changes. So the goal can't be mastery. The goal is slope. Upward slope, slow, and sustainable. And it gets uncomfortable. Some architects look advanced but are moving flat. They know enough to operate and they've built some confidence, but they've stopped compounding. They repeat the same patterns without expanding them. And then other architects feel unsure. They question themselves. They're aware of gaps, but they're climbing. The difference is trajectory. If your slope is positive, you're ahead. Even if you don't feel impressive, stop asking, am I good yet? Start asking, am I moving upward? Are you taking on slightly heavier responsibility than last year? Are you spotting coordination issues faster than last year? Are you getting less RFIs on a project that you did last year? Are your questions sharper than last year? That's trajectory. Mastery is a snapshot. Trajectory is a direction. And architecture practice rewards direction. How about consistency over intensity? Architecture culture loves intensity. You go through it in school, late nights, hero deadlines, or in practice, you're rescuing a broken drawing set or pulling off a last-minute miracle. Intensity feels productive. It feels visible, and it gets noticed. Consistency does not. Consistency is boring. It's sending the follow-up email when you said you would. It's logging decisions so they don't get lost in meeting minutes. It's reviewing drawings carefully every single week, not just before a deadline or a submission. It's tracking your time honestly. It's preparing for meetings instead of improvising. It's small, repeatable discipline. Intensity impresses. Consistency compounds. You can burn bright for a week, but you can't build judgment that way. Judgment's built in the mundane, the weekly coordination calls, the site visits where nothing dramatic happens at all. Incremental red lines, routine submittals, document control habits. If you rely on adrenaline, you'll plateau. If you rely on repetition, you'll compound. And here's the confrontational part. Some of you are addicted to intensity because it feels like progress. It's not. It's emotion. Compounding is unemotional. It's stable. It's built on showing the same way over and over and over. It's not glamorous. It's effective. So what does this actually mean? It means stop hunting for those dramatic leaps. You don't need a breakthrough project. You need better reps. Track exposure, not applause. Did you handle more coordination this quarter? Did you take on more stretch tasks? Do you write clearer emails? Are you closing more loops? Protect repetition. If you're still constantly bouncing between new tools, new systems, new distractions, you're interrupting the compounding. Pick your fundamentals. Refine them. Repeat them. You're not late. You're accumulating. And accumulation feels slow until one day it isn't. Most of practice isn't learned all at once. It compounds slowly, quietly, predictably. You don't need intensity. You need slope. You don't need mastery. You need direction. If this season was about what nobody teaches you, next season needs to shift to something heavier. Responsibility. What happens when people stop just evaluating your output and then they start trusting your judgment? Because once practice starts to compound, expectations change. And that's where it gets interesting. So I'll see you there in season 2. This podcast only works if it gets passed along. Not because of me, but because the hardest parts of practice are usually learned in isolation. If this episode put words to something that you've been struggling with, share it with someone earlier in practice or leave a comment naming the moment that hit. I'm doing this because I remember how long it took to realize that I wasn't behind. I just wasn't being taught. Most of what feels like a personal failure in this profession is actually a shared pattern. The more we name those patterns, the faster we all get better. I'll see you in the next one.